Hello, welcome to the Gig Economy Podcast. Today we have André from Incognia. It is a platform that they use to help fight fraud and abuse and for food delivery, rideshare, all that fun stuff. We had him on, and it's not a typical interview that we would do, but with all the issues with undocumented immigrants definitely using the platform and abusing it and taking money away from us, we thought it was a good idea to bring Andre on to kind of talk about it and what they're doing and what is actually happening that we don't realize. So it was really good. It had some nuts and bolts in there, but Andre did a great job explaining it, and I know you're going to enjoy it. Thanks so much. Have a great day. I'm excited about this because it's definitely been a topic of discussion in regards to people being shady on the apps for sure. So how did you, first of all, thank you for coming on, but getting involved in the gig economy, I'm assuming you had this business for something else and then the gig economy came around. You're like, oh, wow, we really need to, work on that and address that. And did you reach out to try to help that problem you were seeing, or did they say, hey, we need some help with some sort of security?
Yeah, well, it was a very interesting journey, I'd say. Like initially, we started in the financial services industry, so we were helping like banks to identify fraud, and we were doing quite well in that space. And then at some point, we had a discussion with a food delivery company from Brazil, and during that initial discussion, we were quite impressed with all the different fraud and abuse use cases that they were mentioning. And before that, our impression was that the toughest market when it comes to like fraud and abuse was the financial services industry. But after that meeting, we were like, okay, this is actually a lot more challenging. And after some time, we started realizing why. So I'd say there are three things that stood out from that conversation. The first one is that you have a lot more stakeholders involved in any particular transaction, right? So, for example, in food delivery, you have the restaurant, and then you have the driver that's going to deliver the food. Then you have the customer, obviously, and each of them could be a bad actor, or even all of them could be bad actors, right? And they could collude and create all kind of schemes there. So that was one aspect. The second was these companies were pretty much all using fraud prevention tools that were not built for them.
Mm.
Their tools were actually built for e-commerce companies,
Mhm.
but it doesn't really fit their needs because in the more traditional e-commerce, right, the transactions they happen at some point, and then the order is going to be delivered like a few days later, right? In food delivery or ride hailing, like people are expecting the service to come to you like immediately, right? So there's no
Mhm.
time for like, let's say, manually reviewing a suspicious transaction because like the food is going to get cold
Right.
or you're going to
Right.
miss your flight, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot more urgency and a lot of more like real time decisioning that goes on, right? So we saw that many of these companies were also leaving a lot of money on the table because they were like declining certain transactions because it looked suspicious, but they didn't have enough data to decide there in real time, right? And then I'd say the last thing is that the regulatory environment is very uncertain, right? In
Mhm.
some regions, like for example, the couriers or drivers, they're being treated as employees. In other places of the world, they're being treated as contractors.
Mhm.
Different places have different rules, right? So, for example, in the states of like New York, for example, there are different regulations where the gig workers that they get paid not only by delivering the order but also by staying active. So that creates a lot of incentives for certain types of abuse.
Sure.
So yeah, when we got into that, we were like, wow, this is incredibly difficult. But this
Yeah.
is actually the type of problem that we enjoy solving. So that we jumped in.
I have to bring up, and you talk about the financial end of it that you worked with. Have you seen the The whole Chase Bank thing on social media that was going on, like,
Check kiting.
I don't understand, like, why. First of all, why do the bank does that? They shouldn't like show you that it's positive. They should be like, nah, we have to check this because duh. I'm like, that's like writing bad, bouncing checks like back in the
exactly
day.
what it is.
I couldn't believe that like people are actually doing it and line it up at the ATM. So it made me chuckle when you said financial.
Hey, if it's on TikTok, people are going to do it.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah,
for sure. And then also, did you interview with Steve from Rideshare Rodeo? Were you on his show too?
Mm-hmm.
So that guy, so I'd be curious. I didn't listen to the episode, but he really harps on the illegal immigrants. I know that's like such a big thing. And it truly is. Like that is the thing that sucks for us is that they're coming in. We see all these these screenshots of especially like Walmart Spark, all these people have all these phones and stuff like that. And I'm fine with immigrants coming in, but I mean, we got to all play by the same set of rules. You know what I mean? And so I'm glad that you are working on doing that. So can you tell me a little bit what makes it different from the security that they were using like for e-commerce site, and then what you do that's a little bit more different? Is it AI? Is it software? Is it coding?
Yeah. I'd say overall, like the more, let's say, classic way to prevent fraud online has been mostly around two things. The first one is on checking for all of the different identity attributes and seeing if they match, right? So this is like the more traditional way of doing this. So for example, the credit bureaus, they dominated that market, right? They already have all that data. So if you're making a purchase online, they want to make sure that the credit card information is matching your name and your address and your phone number and all of that. The issue with that initial approach is that we've seen so many data breaches recently that this data is already all over the place, right? So anyone can just capture that data, use that to manufacture a fake document, for example, and then bypass all of these security controls. So then the next phase was to start looking not only at your identity attributes, but also more information about your device, right? So the second, I'd say, generation of fraud prevention solutions was more focused on creating a unique identifier for your device so that if you try to use someone else's identity, but you're still using the same device, they're going to see, okay, the same browser or the same mobile device is trying to log in with different names or different credentials, right? So that approach like currently dominates the market, but there are some issues with that. Basically have to do with two things. The first one is that the new privacy policies and all of the things that are changing in the like mobile operating systems and browsers and regulations are making it harder to collect the data that's necessary to like fingerprint these devices and recognize them in the future. But the second thing is that fraudsters do adapt, right? So they now learned how these technologies work, and they have created new techniques to bypass this type of security, right? So then comes this, I'd say, the new generation of companies like Incognia, for example, where in addition to all of these things that I just mentioned, we also look at other signals that are more related to the user behavior, and particularly related to location behavior. So when it comes to the gig economy, that type of data is widely available because, for example, for a driver on a food delivery platform to deliver food, they need to share location with the app, right? So the app is able to track if they went to the restaurant and then delivered the order, etc. So what Incognia does is, in addition to recognizing the device, we also create an equivalent to a fingerprint to each user based on their behavioral patterns, right? So the places they go most frequently and things like that. So, for example, one of the typical use cases we see for fraud is related to the same person using multiple accounts, and this could happen both on the driver side, for example, but also on the customer side, which is on the customer side, you may want to create multiple accounts because all of these apps are providing like coupons for you to place your first order, right? So you get a $10 discount if you place your first order, and then some people had the brilliant idea of like eating for free forever. So they create thousands of accounts and they use these coupons over and over for several days, right? So that would be one reason why they would create multiple accounts. But on the driver side, for example, it might be more related to, for example, these platforms, they have their own policies, right? And if you violate these policies multiple times, you get banned, right? So if I'm not the greatest driver and I'm always violating these policies, I may want to have access to multiple accounts so I don't get banned, right? So if I get banned, I go to the next account, etc. And looking only at the device may not be sufficient, because if these people are making a lot of money with this type of scheme, they can afford to use multiple devices, right? So we then use location to understand, like, okay, we have 30 devices in the same physical location, and suddenly everybody had the same idea to create an account on this ride sharing platform.
Yeah.
Something weird is going on, right? So we would flag that as suspicious.
So as you're moving forward, what are some of the biggest problems that y'all are working on, or that you see in the near future that you're going to be coming up against, and that you'll have to try and solve? As you said, I know it's a pendulum. Y'all create the technology, the fraud people find a way to get around it. Y'all come up with new technology, they find a way to get around it. I know it's always it's just a give and take constantly.
Yeah, well, there's several issues. So it actually depends a lot on the region.
Mm-hmm.
So starting with the US, I'd say some of the most challenging things that we're seeing right now are, first, on the driver side, both for like ride sharing and delivery platforms. These new regulations, like the one in New York, are like creating new types of abusive behavior. So, for example, I was lucky in this case from a research standpoint, but unlucky from a consumer standpoint, that when this regulation went out, I was in New York and I decided to place an order on a food delivery platform just to test it. And in the first order, it happened to me, which was, I placed an order. I was in a hotel. The restaurant was across the street. I was ordering food from that place, and it was just a burger, and it took like almost 2 hours for that burger to get to me. Basically, what happened was the person just was hanging out, accepted the order, didn't deliver, and was just waiting for them to make some money without doing anything.
Wow.
Right? So they crossed the street, came back to me. So that is one issue, right? Another issue that is associated to that is some of these drivers, they are even in different states, and they're spoofing the GPS location on their phones to look like they are in New York, and they just like remain active there. They don't deliver anything, but they're still making money, right? So that's one new challenge that's going on. Second thing, also related to the US, is around account sharing. So this is very much related to the undocumented people that are on these platforms, right? So someone creates the account, like a documented person, etc., but then they sell access to this account, or they rent this account to someone else, and then people don't have any controls. And this has not only fraud implications, but it also has a lot of like insurance, like liability issues, because if that person hits someone in the street and the platform doesn't really know who's that person, the liability is like huge. It's much higher than if it was an actual verified driver, right? So that is another big issue. Besides these two that are like we're observing more in the US market, I'd say one that is global is collusion. And this one is very hard to fight, because it's when you have different stakeholders being part of a broader scheme to defraud the platforms, right? So, for example, there's a lot going on with refund abuse. So basically, someone creates an account as a consumer and a driver. They convince a restaurant to start accepting orders from them, and what they do is they type on the like comments, like if you want to add a special request, for example, for that order, they're going to type some specific codes that when the restaurant sees, they know that they don't even have to prepare that meal, right? And then that whole thing creates like thousands of transactions only with this small group of people. And then the consumer, which is a fake customer, they then start asking for refunds, and they're using like all sorts of things to make that even more profitable. So they're using like coupons, and they're using stolen credit cards and a lot of stuff, and still get the refund. So that's one thing that's quite big. There's also collusion for coupon abuse as well. So yeah, collusion is the hardest by far, because you need to make sure that you can identify this, and you can triangulate the behavior between all parties of the transaction and understand like these people are working together.
Right.
So a couple things as you talked. I'm glad you explained that, because like we think of it just like the driver's side. That's what we talk about. But when you were telling me all like the fraud on the coupons and stuff like that, and all that, it really opened my eyes. But how are these companies accepting? Like, I'm not sure who you work with or whatnot, but we feel, just from our layman's terms, when we're looking out, that these companies don't really care about security, because guess what? The order's getting delivered and they got a happy customer. They don't give a shit that, some guy that doesn't look like, who they're supposed to is getting delivered. So that's, I mean, maybe we're a little jaded, and that's why we think they're not doing anything, and maybe they are. And then and the other part of that is, you're obviously super smart, and so I'm trying to dumb it down for me and stuff like that. And in regards to like, I notice these apps are starting to ask for pictures. Is that like a crucial step for people? Because you said like they create another account and they sell the information or whatever, and then they go online, but they don't. The picture doesn't look the same. So that, yeah, okay, you created a fake ID, but let me see your face. It's tough to beat. I would think it would be tough to beat those face things. So when I do it, it's pretty technical. It's not like just snap a picture. I mean, I guess Amazon Flex is just snap a picture, but like DoorDash, you got to turn left, you got to turn right, up and down. Is that good that they're doing that? Is that going to really help defeat some of that fraud is in regards to the driver side?
Yeah. So starting with the first question, they actually do care a lot. It's just hard. But for example, this example that you just mentioned about like asking the drivers to like take these pictures and like turn right and left, etc. Like this type of software is very expensive. Like
Oh,
these platforms are spending like millions of dollars to be able to do this. So they're investing a lot. They have huge teams working on this very issue, but it's very hard. Um, I'd say so far, like most of them were not able to get access to the best tools.
mm,
So this is why like so much of this still happens. But this is changing, and it's changing rapidly. So for example, a lot of the platforms like initially they thought that they could build this kind of stuff internally, and most of these platforms are like founded by engineers, right? And they all have this bias to like try to build everything themselves.
right.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in fraud specifically, like a food delivery company or ride sharing company will never become a specialist in this, because it's a very dynamic space. Like
Mhm.
the fraud solutions that work for you today, they may not work tomorrow just because of like some new technology or some new technique that a fraudster has invented. So it's a cat and mouse game. And if you want to build this yourself as a platform, uh, the first version of your solution is probably going to work,
Mm,
but it's not going to last long, right? Because
Mhm.
people will figure out how to bypass it. So what initially seems like a small investment to build a new solution can become a massive investment, because you need to keep upgrading these things all the time. So yeah, they're well like me in regards to like they want to solve these problems, but they
Mhm.
haven't been taking the right approach. I'd say that would be my assessment. And some of these technologies they're implementing now, they're working quite well, but there are some issues. So for example, when it comes to facial recognition used to work really well until recently, but now with all these things around like generative AI and deep fakes, this is becoming more challenging, right? So it now it's very easy for you to use some of these solutions and use someone else's picture and use that as a mask that fits you perfectly. And when you move, like that face is still there, right? And this can fool these facial recognition systems already, right?
Jeez.
So yeah, it's very, very challenging. And these people are creating these technologies all the time, right? So you have that. There's another thing that you can do, which is called image injection. So basically what we do is there are some tools that enable you to replace the feed from your camera with other images. So when you open the delivery app and they ask for you to take the picture, you may say, yeah, I'm going to take the picture, but you already have software loaded on your device that is not really going to open the camera. They're just going to load this video that you have created for this specific purpose, right? And you're always going to beat that if the platform is not using the right technology to detect this kind of thing. So that's why I've mentioned, like, this is a cat and mouse game. Like, you put this in place, then the fraudsters will start using this new technology, and then you have to have like new technology to detect it, and then they're going to change. So yeah, I think these platforms are learning a lot, and they're changing their approach. They're relying more on partners like us, and I believe there's a very promising future. But obviously, it's never going to be a situation where you say, okay, now these platforms are 100% secure. Like, we'll never get there.
Right.
But there's a lot of room for improvement.
Do you feel like the picture thing, though, is probably software that is a little pricey at the, like you were talking about how it interrupts the stream or whatever, basically? Do you feel like Joe Blow like me could download that on an Android device cheaply? Like, I mean, maybe over time could become cheaper. Like, you know how they're stealing cars now, right? You have to buy this like fancier computer system that like recodes everything. And so it's more expensive than your average, just carjacker walking down the street. So I'm just wondering if that, yeah, they have that software out there, but is it really accessible to like Joe Blow?
It is.
Oh no! Don't say that.
Yeah, for example, like yesterday, I found one that was like completely free. It's like open source, and it was a very impressive video of a guy. I'm gonna share the link here for you to take a look later.
Okay.
But it was very impressive. Like the guy basically selected just one picture of Elon Musk and replaced that as a mask on him, and then he was using like another smartphone with like the lights on, just to show like how perfect the solution was in terms of like the shadows and like the light in his face, and it was near perfect. And this is a free solution that anyone can download, and even the source code is available if you want to change it, for example. So it's crazy.
Yeah, so AI is always a topic that comes up when you're talking anything technology related. How are y'all? How's your company or other companies utilizing AI in the fight against fraud?
Yeah. So AI, even though it's a hot topic right now, like in the fraud prevention space, it's been around for a while. Most, even for example, the credit bureaus back in the day, like they all use machine learning to do like risk modeling for credit and also for fraud. These new solutions also they use it in different ways. Our unique approach, I'd say, it's mostly on focusing on the data instead of the algorithm. So, for example, one of the things we have developed over the past 10 years is we've built a proprietary location technology that, instead of relying only on GPS signals, we use other signals, like, for example, Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and other information, to make sure that that the data is intact, because GPS can be easily spoofed.
Yeah.
So that is one issue, but the other is to also increase the precision, and especially for like particularly delivery and ride sharing use cases. Precision can play a big role here on, for example, identifying like users within buildings and things like that, and ensuring that the order was delivered to the right place, for example. So yeah, we decided to focus on perfecting our techniques to get access to the best possible data, because the algorithm is more of a commodity, but the data is not. So that's our approach, is ensuring that we have the best device signals, the best location signals, and with that we're able to provide a better assessment of if something is fraud or not.
You mentioned earlier about data privacy, and there's some laws that you have to, especially in the States and stuff like that. What is preventing, and maybe it's the law, what is preventing an app saying, hey, bro, we need all this? Like it already does. It always needs your firstborn kid, when you're download an app and and everyone just gives it permission, right? No one reads that shit. So
Yeah.
me included. But what's preventing them from an app like DoorDash or whatever, Walmart, Spark, to ask for that, and we give them permission, so then that's okay to do, I guess. But maybe it is the laws that prevent that. They can't ask for that, whatever it is. I don't know what they're asking for that they need that we can't do, but
Yeah, so it really depends on the type of data. So for example, to collect the data that's used to identify a device, for example, you as a fraud prevention platform, you don't need any specific permissions. But for example, to access behavioral data like location, you need to ask for the user permission, right? This is less of a regulatory thing and more of a policy from the operating systems,
okay.
right? So Google and Apple, they have these policies in which the app can only collect certain types of information if the user permits, and location is one of them. In regards to the apps themselves, each company has a different approach, right? Like most companies in the fraud prevention space, they have an approach in which they collect everything that's available, and they don't really care much about privacy. We take a slightly different approach in which we focus on what is really going to make a difference. So, for example, in the beginning, I've mentioned that the first generation of fraud prevention solutions was mostly based on identity attributes, right? So your name, your social security number, your phone number, address, date of birth, etc. This data is all leaked. So this data is no longer useful for fraud prevention measures. So we don't even collect that. So on our end, we don't collect any information associated to that user's identity. So we don't really know who we're analyzing. We don't have like the user's name, phone number, email address, anything like that. But we do understand that this device has a certain behavior, right? And if this device then gets associated to multiple accounts, this is not expected behavior. This is probably fraud, right? Or if this device is associated to multiple devices that operate together in the same physical location, that's also suspicious, right?
Yeah.
So we care more about analyzing and understanding devices and their behaviors than really understanding who's behind that device. Like there are other companies doing that part, verifying documents and that kind of stuff. But I think it's quite dangerous, like to mix these things up. Because, for example, imagine a data breach, right? Imagine if we had all your personal information, right? That, as I've mentioned, like your name, your phone number, and we had also all of your location history.
Right.
This could lead to a lot of problems, right?
Yes.
But if we create this wall between what we have, which is the behavioral data, and what our customers have, which is the identifying information, then the only way to like have that scenario is that someone would have to hack all the different parties, right? They would have to hack us and all of our customers, and they would need to breach all of that data at once for the users to be identified. So it's a lot more challenging to do all of that at the same time.
Sure.
So that's why we create that wall and we isolate the data.
Yeah, that's super smart. And it's just to remind everyone too, and you said at the beginning, this is all happening in milliseconds too. Like this has got to happen so quick. It's not like, delivering a FedEx package where it's a little bit slower, but that's incredible to me anyways, that it can happen that quick. So I want to just wrapping up here. I want to go back to the Bluetooth technology. Now, obviously you don't want to give any secrets out, but I'm curious how I can see how that would work, because that's like, what do they call that? Like low frequency or something like that kind of technology. And how does that work to identify that the person is the person?
Yeah, it can happen in different ways, right? Because we have like different types of Bluetooth devices. Some are personal, some are static and stationary. So, for example, I have two Bluetooth devices with me right now. Right, I have my headphones and I have my watch. Both are connected to my phone. So, if this phone continues to see these two Bluetooth devices, the likelihood that the person using this device is still me is very high. Right, so this is the kind of thing we analyze. Another thing that is also quite useful is in regards to stationary devices, right? So, for example, I have a Bluetooth speaker right here that is in my living room, and it doesn't leave this place, right? So, if my phone is here and I place an order on a delivery platform or request a ride, like the app has seen me at this physical location multiple times, and this Bluetooth speaker can confirm that I'm not spoofing the GPS data because there's another signal that we can confirm, like, okay, this user is at this physical location.
So how does that work with permissions, though? Would that be like, you know how it asks for all it like access to the microphone? Would it say, hey, access to Bluetooth? Although I think some stuff does ask for that. Now that I think about it, God, what app does that?
Yeah, it depends on the app and it depends on the user permissions. So yeah, some apps ask for that, others don't. Like I'd say the most common permission that we get is the more generic, like location permissions, and with that you can already do a lot of stuff. Bluetooth is a little bit harder to get permission, and especially like the justification to get this signal is a little bit harder. So yeah, it varies by use case, it varies by application. So for example, apps in the gaming space, they usually have a little bit more permission to capture Bluetooth because they have integrations with other platforms, or entertainment apps also do have access to Bluetooth, and fitness apps. So we work with a bunch of different types of applications, not only gig economy apps. And depending on the use case, they may have access to this or not.
Interesting.
Okay. Well, is there anything coming up that you want to talk about? Any innovations coming up or new features coming up? And also, is there anything that you want to plug as far as how people can find out more information about you and your company?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I'd say that one of the most exciting things that is mostly related to gig economy is that we're building a lot of new features, soon to be launched, related to identifying collusion schemes.
Okay.
So it's going to get harder for people to control like a customer and a driver and a restaurant account all at the same time to put these things together. So yeah, that's one of the big areas we're investing on because it's very challenging, big challenge for delivery companies in particular and ride sharing platforms. And yeah, in regards to like helping companies find us, we're very easy to find. Incognia.com. That's our main channel for communication. We're also on LinkedIn and all those social media platforms. But yeah, I'd say our website has a lot of examples of like what we can do for different industries, and particularly gig economy.
Yeah, I watched some of your videos, and they were very, very interesting.
Thank you for coming on. I know it's not our typical interview. I mean, just because it's, a lot of nuts and bolts, and we're just two goofy guys that love to talk about the gig economy for many, many years, and we really enjoy talking about it. But I think people will really like this because, I've learned some things about, I never even thought about like the actual like restaurant, like what's up with these scammy people? Like, it's like, come on, man, just do shit like you're supposed to do. And like, we all can just live our life like we're supposed to live our life.
Yeah, dream on.
Yeah, dream on. So appreciate it, Andre.
Yeah, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
This podcast is produced and edited by Hey Guys Media Group. Want to start a podcast? Check out heyguysmediagroup.com.